Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Portal. Joining me is the glorious from himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how the hell are you?
Good man, we are post Rumble heading into WrestleMania season, I guess.
Yeah, and with how bad I feel the Rumble was, now, listen, you might like Jey Uso. Fans at home might like Jey Uso. Jey Uso might like Jey Uso. Jimmy might like Jey Uso. I think we've gotten to a level of stupidity with Triple H's booking where the rose is quickly falling off the bloom, so to speak, or the bloom's falling off the rose, whichever way it works, because people are starting to realize that he's not some great genius booker. Now, they put Uso over, and everyone's like, yeah, Cleveland loved Uso. Well, Cleveland loved Deshaun Watson. That's not exactly a ringing declaration. Let's see how he does going forward. Also, counterpoint. Raw is under 3 million viewers globally. I think Netflix has 200, 300 million subscribers.
Is that the live number?
Yeah, that's the live number. And when you hear that, 2.9 million. Let's do a quick little Google search, all right? Netflix subscriber count. What do we got here? Netflix subscriber has over 300 million paid subscribers worldwide, according to the AI overview on Google. According to January 22nd of 2025, the quarterly Netflix subscriber counts for the end of quarter four are approximately 301 million subscribers. Let's do another Google search. United States population. 334.9 million American citizens. So there's nearly as many subscribers as there are American citizens. And when you factor in the fact that most people over the last 15, I'd say probably 10 years, didn't have cable, and they were still getting around these numbers on USA Network, to see how many people aren't watching them, I think it's worrying. I think they've done a good job catering to the audience they have, but they are not growing their audience. I don't think the WWE is any bigger today than it was 10 years ago. And I think with Triple H's booking, it's just going to get worse. The numbers are going to fall. And listen, Jey Uso may be the meme of the moment, but so is Rusev. So is
So,
Fandango.
so you're talking about bigger in terms of the audience that's consistently watching as opposed to the business reach that they've garnered over the last decade.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is the core fandom of the WWE, which has not changed roughly over the last 10 years,
Yeah.
because they have less than 3 million live viewers on Raw. When USA Network would get them about the same amount at maybe a third or maybe a half of what Netflix has in terms of reach.
Mm.
So when
So
when you see because I think cable at its peak probably was 175 million homes, give or take. And even then, Raw hasn't been over a 3.5 consistently in 20 years. So now you have a much
yeah,
bigger spectrum, much bigger fan base to pull from, much bigger advertising. You have more potential eyes on your product than ever before, and you are getting worse numbers. Not worse than where
yeah,
they were on Raw when they left. The numbers from USA from December of 2024 to now,
yeah.
are better
Because
objectively.
yeah,
But the
because
reach of the platforms has grown significantly and has outpaced what the USA Network would have had by probably 3 times. So, yes, they're up by, 400, 500,000 viewers from when Raw ended on the USA Network, but they're also on a platform that's 3 times as large. So that's embarrassing.
yeah, and to your point, because I think we definitely talked about this last week. Oh, so I guess you would attribute that to some people just are kind of their life has to be set up in such a way. So a lot of them are locked into their viewing habits.
Hmm.
And like you talked about it last week, some people just naturally just either tune in after each hour or just wait till the entire show's done and then just come back and watch on the replay.
Or they watch it on YouTube, or they just read the results.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing is a worrying trend of decreasing numbers and decreasing numbers after WrestleMania and heading into WrestleMania after the Royal Rumble when the rating should be at its highest. But we don't know who Cody's facing at WrestleMania. There's no hot storyline for him because the WWE and The Rock nerfed that idea. I do believe, with all the issues The Rock possesses as a modern day wrestler, I do think if he was on screen, the numbers would be going up, not down. And then you look at the fact that Jey Uso, a meme wrestler, who's over, in person, sure, but he's not in an actual tangible way. Tickets aren't up, viewership's not up, social media numbers for Jey Uso aren't great. If we're talking about popularity and social media trends, I agree with the sentiment. Like, if the goal is over, why not put iShow Speed in the main event? Put him against Braun Breaker in the main event of WrestleMania. I'm sure you'll get a 500 million views. Isn't that the goal? So I
So
don't know.
essentially, yeah. So essentially, what we got at Mumble was the final four, like the great pillars that's currently in WWE is basically these are your top merch sellers. There you go.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't even think Jey Uso's a top merch seller. Not universally. You have John Cena, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk, and
Alone.
and they're not in any. Now listen, I don't mind that Roman's not in a world title match, right? But Drew McIntyre's supposed to be facing Damian Priest. I know you're a Damian Priest fan. I'm a Danhausen fan. We each like wrestlers that maybe aren't the best in ring, right? But da- Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre, that's your
Yeah,
your hot
it's
WrestleMania match?
it's such a detour, and this is no shot at Priest, 'cause like you said, I do like Priest, and I think he'll be served better on SmackDown. Uh, Certainly after everything with the Judgment Day, but McIntyre's whole thing all year has basically been making sure that, much like Rollins did in the Rumble, that no more Samoan supremacy, if you will, or lashing anybody that sided with him that was suffering from him from the last 4 years. So to kind of detour him all the way up to Mania because he got taken out the Rumble when he basically only got in the Rumble to make sure Roman didn't get there. It's a hard left. It's kind of like what they did when they kind of just threw Nia at Rhea recently at Saturday Night's Main Event.
Right.
Even though she's on a whole nother show, and I think that played to a problem I was talking about. Like she don't have any real tangible forces that she can compete with on Raw now that she's done with Liv. Raquel's just a bigger girl, but she's no threat.
Yeah,
And
they've ruined
Rhea Dog,
Raquel.
yeah, she's done. She's told she's but and she dog walked everybody before she got injured in the division. So to me, they damn near got to put up with somebody like Jordan for her to actually have a threat.
But that's part of the issues. They're not going to, right? You know, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins are rumored to be one of the matches for WrestleMania. I don't even know who they're going to put John Cena against. So there's just so many concerns with this WrestleMania card, and I wish people would kind of pull their heads out of their asses a little bit and kind of look at Triple H's historical run as a booker and realize that he doesn't really segue into feuds really well. Because you would think WrestleMania, right? Biggest show of the year. Kill off the fake bloodline. Have a final war match with the OG bloodline versus whatever Heyman's group is called, or not Heyman's, Jacob Fatu's. Kill them all for good. Let them go their own ways because we don't need two wannabe bloodlines running around, right? Or you do Roman versus Solo at WrestleMania because you've been building up to this match for a year and a half and you blew it on a random Raw. Now you can be like, well, it was the Netflix premiere. Yeah, cool. 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 No one cares. WrestleMania trumps everything. Everything. And I hate that we have a company whose entire baseline is, hey, let's do stupid matches at WrestleMania instead of the major blow off feuds that we've been building up to for over a year. I've never understood
It,
that
it,
concept and it pisses me off.
and I mean, you're not wrong again. And I know we run this point to the ground, but they said it. It was clear. Like maybe the narrative now is like, um, because I'm sure you're familiar with just like Occam's razor, the whole the most likely outcome used is the thing
Yeah, if you're in
going.
Montana and you hear hooves, you think horse, not
Yeah,
zebra.
yeah. Apparently, their whole game plan is like absolutely uh, going the opposite way what everybody's expecting. Because again, they wasn't going with Roman Cody for that Mania. It wasn't gonna be Cody.
No.
If not for The Rock, that kid, he wouldn't have got the title. He's even alluded to like people not really ever want him, not probably ever gonna tell what the actual plan was for him going into Mania instead of where they did go. So it's like this whole we're gonna divert everybody's expectations to high hell and then give them something they didn't even know they wanted, like Jay winning the Rumble or God knows what else. It's stupid. It is legitimately stupid, and I think a lot of people again. We talked about this at nauseum. It's easy to praise Triple H when you're coming off of Vince's "I book whatever gets me to beat off." Like, so it's you're not you're comparing apples to dog doodle.
Honestly, I'm at a point where I may not even watch WrestleMania this year. The two nights on its own has really
Yeah, I know that's
soured me on it,
annoying. How hell yeah.
right? I hate it. I hate it so much. Now, is it better than a 9 hour WrestleMania? Yeah. But you don't need 9 hours. You don't need two nights. A 4 hour show is all you need. Not every match needs to go 25 minutes. You don't need 16 minutes of ads in between each match. You don't. They're they're destabilizing what made a WrestleMania great, and they're oversaturating the concepts to a point where this era no longer feels special. Two Rumble matches doesn't feel special. Two main events of WrestleMania doesn't feel special. And now we're getting booking that just doesn't make any sense. You're putting your biggest names against guys who aren't having hot runs right now. You're ending feuds prematurely because you have better ideas for WrestleMania. Really? Like they might do Ray versus Pentagon, and that might be cool. But I don't know. What
Yeah,
about the Dominic Ray stuff? Like we keep hearing Dominic and Ray, chirping at one another. Eventually, they got to have their final blow off, right? You'd think, but yet here we are.
yeah, poor, and nobody is saddled with a legend like Rey Mysterio. But the way I was gonna call him Kalisto, um, not
Penta?
not Kalisto, no,
Oh,
the
Dragon Lee.
yes, thank you. Dragon Lee has been just sidelined to dear God
Well,
is
Dragon Lee, isn't
insane.
he the speed champion, the prestigious speed champion? He's the speediest of all speedy champions. He's so speedy.
And we got to keep in mind, Jay could also go for that title. So
And he
yeah,
probably will.
it's a crazy little thing. Like you said, I'm not hating on the Jay thing at all. Happy for him, like real legitimate emotion. Still got the crowd with him, the merch, whatever have you. But I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how they do that elimination chamber because, like you said, it's like either they're gonna take something in a completely different direction, which apparently is their sole narrative, or they're gonna make it a multi-man match.
I don't
Because it's
know. Like, who do you even put in with? Let's say they do Jay versus Walter or Gunther, whatever Austrian name we're going with. Who's the third? Do you have anyone in mind?
they're not gonna do Braun because Braun's gonna be. They probably gonna. Well, they might blow Braun and Penta off soon enough. But I want to say Seth, but Seth might have Roman. Though apparently he's supposed to be out for an undisclosed amount of time, which I mean that's basically his contract in general. Not
Yeah.
like he's there anyway. So it's like you could throw Seth in there because Sammy is apparently gonna be occupied once again by KO because we can't never be done with those two. So outside of Rollins, um, I'm guessing they're not gonna they throw Jacob at Cody before they throw him at Gunther because that's two different brands.
So like they're already doing. Like the rumor is Punk, Reigns, Seth, right? But I don't know. I don't think you can make Jay versus Gunther work in any type of multi tag or multi man match. Like we've seen it. They haven't been good matches. I don't care how much coke Dave Meltzer does. It's not a good match. Jay is so limited as a singles wrestler. So is Jimmy. In 10, 15, however long they've been in the WWE, Marcus, I remember them having one or two good matches, like truly good matches. And it was against the New Day in their rivalry against them in, what was that, 2016, 2017?
Mm-hmm.
That was it. In 12, 13, 14, 15 years that they've been in this company, they've had one feud where they were directly responsible for a good match. And it was against arguably the greatest tag team of the modern era in the WWE, the New Day. That's like saying, well, Kurt Angle had a good match with Perry Saturn, so Perry Saturn's obviously one of the all-time greats. Is that the case? Is that the case? Like I don't know.
It's weird, man, because it's like if they build up to because it all things are seemingly leading to him and Gunther because the whole reason why he entered the Rumble was to prove to get back to the spot so he could prove that he can beat him because in his mind he can. But it's like even as likable as he is, it's like we know that if he beats this guy, it's not because he was the better performer. Like I
Yeah,
almost wish they would have did a thing where they did find some kind of way to build Gable back up to him.
and like that's again like one of those things that really irked a lot of people like Chad Gable, Eli Drake, LA Knight, whatever we call them. Two guys who were super over, not meme over, just over, and for whatever reason, they're stuck in the mid card. Yet Jey Uso, who's as old as both men, I think LA Knight's older, but I think he might be older. I think Jay might be as old or older than Chad Gable. He just keeps getting shot after shot after shot after shot, and it's like, we've watched him for 5 years now do this singles thing, and I'm left unimpressed. You have to really enjoy like Roman or Walter, Gunther, whatever, to really enjoy any matches Jay's had. Because I don't know a lot of people who are going to sit there and go, "Oh yeah, Jey Uso's a top worker." At least say that without having some form of prior brain damage. Fucking terrible. That being said, I don't want to spend any more time talking about Jey Uso. Jey Uso is hot garbage, overrated. He's going to stink up the joint at WrestleMania because that's just what he does. What we are talking about today is twofold. We're talking a debate on Twitter that went wild, and we're going to be talking about a concept that I think failed pretty hardly, and we're going to talk about why. First one up, though, the image has been on the screen all show at this point, is Stone Cold Steve Austin. There are some people who are actually arguing with their whole chest that Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2001 was better than Stone Cold Steve Austin pre-neck break in 1997. Like, think about that. Like, just, if you know athletics, if you know sports, Stone Cold Steve Austin broke his neck, was partially paralyzed for a few minutes, couldn't feel his legs, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. They think that man, with no neck surgery, or with one neck surgery, was better than him before it. And I don't think people understand how biology works. And Marcus, that scares me. That really scares me. You've watched a lot of wrestling, and this isn't to take away from Stone Cold being entertaining, but when you watch Stone Cold's matches in 2001, what would you say were some of his, best matches? And would you say that they were like really impressive, or do you think they were impressive for what they were being offered?
I think they're impressive because what they was being out. He so much about him at that point was about his personality, the taunts, the middle fingers, like you said, the 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 stomps, because he was the ultimate anti-establishment guy. At that point, Mister Flip Your Boss Off and all that. And if he was in the ring with somebody like The Rock or Kurt Angle, or maybe one of the names we don't mention, Benoit, something like that, it came off well because those guys are more technical in the ring and whatnot. But I think by that point, and maybe this plays into your classic, I want to like your itis. He didn't necessarily need to do that much at that point to get the crowd into him. Just the shattering of he got one of the greatest entrance themes of all time. Um, one of the most notable characters of all time. And just the middle finger, like in terms of modern day, like a Orton, all he kind of needs to do is his finish in whatever context, and it's it. He's up. So I think by that time, like you said, with his neck, and to your point about people not knowing biology, I think a lot of times people just, if they see them using it or standing on it or working it, or it's not wrapped or something, they think it's fully back working or perfect. They don't really necessarily notice. And we talked about this at nauseum, how certain performers come back after Achilles tears, uh, bad ACL, repeated injuries, neck stuff. They are noticeably moving different and have changed their move set so they can, supplement that injury. So to me, I think when a lot of his matches look better then because they elevated performers like Kurt Angle, The Rock, and so on and so forth. But it was a completely different thing. When you break your neck, you probably scared to do some of the smallest of stuff, even if you're the one doing the offense. So yeah, you still there?
Sorry, yep, I'm still here. I'm looking for a specific quote. Okay. So this was taken from WWE.com in 2003. The quote says, I've got some serious problems in my neck. This was also said on the Mania of WrestleMania in 2003. That was a movie that was shot heading into WrestleMania 19 that they were hoping to put out in theaters. But for whatever reason, it didn't get traction, and they put it on the WrestleMania 20 DVD set instead. I don't know if it aired elsewhere, but I know that this quote has been said on screen. I'll find it if I have to and post it. But this is essentially what he said, and this is from WWE.com in 2003. I've got serious problems in my neck. It's too long and too complicated to discuss, but a lot of reasons. I walked out of the company 7 or 8 months ago. This is 2002 when he refused to lose to Brock. 7 or 8 months ago were things I didn't want to talk about at the time because we had WrestleMania coming up. The biggest reason I walked away was because my health is going downhill so badly, and I can't compete at an acceptable level to me and at a risk factor that's high enough to me. Everything I do in the ring is very dangerous and makes me go even further downhill. It's potentially something that it could end up being a quadriplegic. That's the biggest reason I walked out. The creative and political issues were just icing on the cake. the straw that broke the camel's back. I refuse to go out there anymore and perform at a substandard level and have people judge me on what I'm putting out there right now. I had a hell of a run, and I'm completely satisfied with it. This is Stone Cold, a year removed from people calling his run the best of his career. I don't know if people understand just how physically limited he was in 2001. It's okay to be like, you know what, Chad, you're right. He was broken. He was beaten. He couldn't bump anymore. But God, those were some good matches. Okay, cool. You can like anything you want in life. That's fine. I still think Sting versus Hogan at Bound for Glory 2011 should have main evented. I thought it was one of the best, most exciting matches on the card, and it had very little to do with the in-ring action. Hogan was cooked by then. Hogan's been overcooked since 1992. Let's not, misconstrue that. But it was a very exciting match because of the story they told in the ring and the story they told outside of the ring and the way they brought the fans in. And that was something Stone Cold always did well. He brought the fans into the match. That does not mean that his matches were quote unquote good. Just from an objective standpoint, if we're talking like move for move, athleticism, compare contrast, they weren't. They were exciting, but exciting does not mean good. Marcus?
I mean, to your point, that's you can take it back to what we were just talking about with Jade. The WWE is really good with creating pomp and circumstance around people to where it looks like something's happening that's not actually, particularly if your mind is in tune to the little in between things. Like you love characters, you love great commentary, you love the little things in between the match, the great story elements that get brought in and out and around the matches. That's why we love Lucha Underground so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like when the whole thing when that helical happened, it just wasn't just because he did that insane jump. It's because of what everything that was going on in that match, what that jump meant when he did it. Like it's a whole lot of stuff. So I just think WWE fans, like if you put enough pomp and circumstance, like you said, that Sting Hogan match, Hogan could barely stand at that point. He
Hogan couldn't
was
bump
sitting
at all.
down for most of that match.
Yep.
They had, I mean, we talked about it. They built a ramp from the stage to the ring because of his back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a like you said, compare and contrast. You wasn't watching stuff like okay, go do a Stone Cold and Kurt Angle match, and then do a Kurt Angle Eddie match or a Kurt Angle Brock match. It's not the same gear.
So I have two little videos. I don't know how much of it I can show. They're on Twitter, and I don't know if YouTube's gonna be sensitive. But like one's Angle and Austin at SummerSlam, and if you watch it, like it's just mostly like the highlights, and these are the highlights of a Stone Cold Steve Austin match: are kick, stunner, punch, kick, stunner, kick, punch. And like if that's fine enough for you, if those are the headlines that you're willing to roll with, and that's exciting to me. Yeah, I love that shit. All right, cool. But let's not pretend, for a moment that, sloppy stunners are the tour de force that we want wrestling to be. It's just not. Then you look at Stone Cold versus the Great Muta. Now, granted, it's not Stone Cold.
We know he's
Steve
missing
Austin
one ear and a brain.
from '94. So this is just 7 years prior. Stone Cold is faster. He's more athletic. He bumps better. He moves better. Stone Cold Steve Austin post '97. Granted, I didn't see a lot of him in '95, '96. WWF is terrible to watch that year. Just terrible garbage. Just the worst. I don't watch a lot of it. I don't remember Stone Cold Steve Austin leapfrogging over a man that's 6'2", 6'1", after his broken neck. And here's the thing: this isn't even a conversation about Stone Cold specifically. I think the biggest attribute, just if you're watching the highlights, like you can clearly see stunning Steve Austin was so much more athletic, so much more capable, had so many more moves in his arsenal, was willing to take bigger risks, bigger bumps. He could do different things. He was a more versatile wrestler. He was a more well-defined wrestler. It's not even a debate. It's not a fucking debate. Stunning Steve Austin as a wrestler was better than Stone Cold Steve Austin as a wrestler. And anyone who thinks subjectively, objectively, or impartiality in any way should perform differently than me, you're factually wrong. Now, was Stone Cold more entertaining? Hell yeah. Steve Williams as a human being turned up with no filter is so damn entertaining. I'm not even a Stone Cold fan. Don't like the guy. Don't dislike him. I have no preferences. But the bionic redneck, the Texas rattlesnake, not characters or ideas that really appealed to Midwest Ohio boy, right? That was a rock guy. But he got over and kept over with that kind of idea. As a wrestler,
Yeah.
though, washed. Comparatively, he was washed.
Yeah. I mean, look, the man's signature look features two knee braces.
And
So it's
and
like
that's
it's
not
only
because it looks good. It's because it's
yeah,
necessary.
absolutely. Like you remember that period when Triple H had that those like halfway tights
Mm-hmm.
that he was wearing, the black.
The bike
That's
shorts
because
because
he had,
he tore his groin.
yeah, exactly. If he didn't have that, he wouldn't have even been able to do anything what he did. But I mean, look, and kudos to Stone Cold. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of a pivot, and you won't even notice something. Like you said, he stopped doing leapfrogs, and what he turned it into, jumping in and doing the Thesz press,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't really take him really getting off his feet like that.
Yeah, he really
With the
didn't leave his
punches,
feet.
yeah,
After the
just
neck
jumped,
injury.
yeah, just do that, and then do the ground and pound the punches in the middle finger. Like it, half his move set on a video game is his middle fingers
Yeah.
along with moves. Like so, it's like. And this is not just exclusive to him. Like, look, me and Chad, clear TNA fans, TNAers, if you will. We kid you not. Go watch Kurt Angle's last wrestling run in TNA. All he did in his matches was spam Germans, angle slams, and ankle locks.
Yeah, he really boiled so like what would it be like 2014 I think we started to see Kurt hit that level.
Yeah,
15 for sure, and then by the time he was facing Lashley in 2016 when he won the belt, yeah, he was toasted, he was roasted, he was done. And then he went to WWE, and everyone's like, "Yeah, he's gonna be 5 star." I'm like, what? You stupid.
something
Here's
like
the
that.
thing, though. This is not a knock on Stone Cold. I
Yeah,
think Stunning Steve Williams in 1994 is one of the most impressive wrestlers in the ring. But I can sit here and say that and acknowledge that there was a significant decline due to an injury because Scott Steiner, 1992, was the best pro wrestler maybe the world has ever seen. And then he fucked his back up. Now, he was still good, but instead of slimming down and losing some weight so his back could heal properly,
he
he
packed on
went the
more
other
muscle.
way. And he
Yeah,
fucked his back up even more, so he started having chronic back problems. And that's something people forget. Like in 98, 99, he was dealing with severe back issues. That's why he quote unquote
yeah,
had to retire in 99 because his back was fucked. And then he developed drop foot. Now, here's the thing, he rehabbed. That it was like I don't think he wrestled for 2 years or like barely wrestled for 2 years between like 2004 and 2006. That 2 years off gave him enough of an opportunity to heal himself because come TNA in 2006, he was having his best matches in 7 years. But that's Scott Steiner. When it comes to Scott Steiner or Stone Cold, or you look at someone like Edge, when you suffer a major injury, you just aren't as good anymore. It's okay to be like, I love Edge's matches with John Cena. They're so good. Edge in 2006, and this is just 4 years later, in 2006, was a shell of what he was in 2002. That's not a knock on Edge. Edge is still going, at 50 in 2025 because he had to make changes. He had to change who he was as a wrestler. But in 2002, he was snapdragon fast. He threw big heel kicks. He did the electric chair drop. He was ferocious. Everything he did was with NFL linebacker speed. And then after he broke his neck, he lost a lot of his definition. He couldn't retain muscle as well as he used to, couldn't work out as hard as he used to. He wasn't as impactful. He was slower. He wasn't as impressive as an athlete. And his just entire aura changed because it had to. He was not able to do the same things he used to be able to do. It's not an offense to point that out and go, yeah, he was not as good in 2006 when he won the WWE Championship as he was in 2002 when he was just ripping and roaring. But this again, you look at Big E. If he ever comes back, it's going to be the same story. You cannot come back as you were from near paralysis. It is near impossible.
Perfect modern day example.
Like
Look at Orton.
Look at Saraya. Look at Sheamus. Now, Sheamus, I think, is the outlier. And
Yeah.
for a real not so nice reason. Sheamus isn't really, he hasn't slowed down since he had developed spinal stenosis. And that's because he was never that good to begin with. Sheamus is like Mick Foley in the sense that Sheamus was never a great athlete, but always had decent control of his body. He wasn't someone who over relied on things that were flashy. He was just kind of brute force. Sheamus is going to be real fucked up when he retires physically. Like his body just cannot keep going the way it is. We see Japanese legends all the time who end up. I think who was it? Kawada might be in a wheelchair now. I forget who it was.
Yeah, he gonna be doing. He might do more cold plunges than he has sex.
Right?
'Cause Jesus,
But
yeah,
like you look at some of these guys like Sheamus, like yeah, he looks like he did 10, 15 years ago, but his body will betray him eventually. And if it's not today, it'll be tomorrow. And that's the thing Edge and Stone Cold and all these other guys try to avoid. Now, does that make Sheamus, a hero? No. Does it make him stupid? No. This is his reputation, this is his legacy, and he wants to make sure that he was as good at going out the door as he was going in the door. I think that's an issue Kurt Angle suffered from. But when you suffer major injuries like these guys do, usually you end up going the Edge Stone Cold route where you have to change everything about who you are. Like Ric Flair, like that's the thing that people don't talk about. Like Ric Flair, like when was his plane crash? 79, 78, something like that. He was a real physical, real offensive minded wrestler. Breaks his back and he has to change everything. He loses like 60 pounds. Because he's just so he can
absolutely.
keep competing.
Yeah, man, perfect example. And I've always noticed this specifically when he was in Evolution in the early 2000s. If you go back and watch any of his matches back then, he never takes a backdrop straight.
No, it's always on his hip.
Always on his side.
It's always on his hip. He takes more drops on his chest than he does on his back.
Hmm.
The one reoccurring bump that he ever took on his back was that corner bump where he would roll up it and then fall down on the outside of the ring and then walk. Like
Yeah.
that was usually it. Like and now granted, again, it gave him a unique look, but he was doing it out of necessity.
Hmm.
So it's not an indictment on Stone Cold Steve Austin as a performer. It's actually a huge compliment because he was able to headline, 20, 30 pay-per-views with a style that, was simple, easy to pull off, wasn't too physically demanding. But I think at the time wrestling was so ingrained in certain aspects because of how limited it was. So like you could get in, you could watch, you could be like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen," because you're not watching anything else. I remember as a kid, there were two promotions that I could watch regularly: WWE, WCW. Right? That was it. WWE would have a litany of shows. You had Livewire, Superstar, Sunday Night Heat, Raw. Eventually, you had SmackDown, but you would only ever see WWE on those shows. WCW had WCW Saturday Night, WCW. What was it? They had Worldwide. They had Nitro. They had Thunder. But again, you're only watching WCW matches. So like you could watch Raw and you could watch WWF and WCW at the same time. If I had a VCR that allowed you to record simultaneously, I was super fancy. So like I could watch Nitro and record Raw or vice versa. But you were only watching those two types of programming, and those two types of programming borrowed heavily from one another. So even if you were watching, SmackDown or Thunder in '98, right? Watch Chris
Yeah.
Jericho, Chris Benoit in '98 on Thunder. Raw 2000, you were getting the same matches. So like you weren't getting a lot of overexposure to other things. So you were
And,
able to be like, oh, Stone Cold main event matches are so great. But now we
yeah.
have easy access to New Japan, All Japan, Noah, CMLL, AAA,
It's the
TNA,
buffet.
MLW. There's too many almost, right? There's almost too many options.
It's the wrestling buffet, and too many good options. I mean,
Exactly.
that's into another benefit. And to your point, like to the early '90s, whole '90s, early 2000s, y'all like to, trip about, crap on, and just black sheep TNA. That's one of the main reasons why people are so into WWE. Talk about the pomp and circumstance I mentioned earlier. You tune into WWE, you was going to get some real TNA.
Yeah, you were going to get Tustin Albert. It was easier to be impressed back then. And it's not because it was better. It was because we had it's because we had much fewer options. Like think about like video games. I remember as a kid going, "Oh my God, can you believe like how they're pulling off the graphics in Castlevania 4 Super Nintendo, Super Castlevania? Like it's 2.5D. It's so cool. Oh my God!" Because we didn't know better. There were arcade games that were nerfing that at the time, but if you weren't around a mall or if you didn't have a great
Yeah,
arcade near you, you didn't know just how
yeah,
much better it could be.
exactly,
Now we do.
exactly.
And you can still
Yeah,
like Stone Cold versus Angle at SummerSlam. You could like Stone Cold versus Rock at WrestleMania 17. But to objectively say they're great matches, you could say they have
it's
great atmosphere. You could say
yeah,
that the fans were really into it. You could say you liked it. But in terms of
yeah,
athletic prowess and how they interacted with one another and how they moved with one another, they were objectively bad.
yeah. Look, and Stone Cold benefited a lot. Like you said, limited options. Back then, like I said, you tuning in real TNA, you're gonna be seeing some of the hottest women ever doing freaking bikini contests and God knows whatever else Vince is cooking up. On top of the fact that back in those times, we weren't living in this golden age of entrepreneurs. Most people were working corporate, and Stone Cold was like this Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So he benefited from that. Like I said, he could do 3 or 4 segments and probably be more entertaining than most of the wrestling on the show. Most weeks, The Rock is in the same boat. Most guys now, which we're gonna get into, talk about another company. You'll put them in 5 segments, and it's like turn the channel now.
Most
You
people
know,
should only be on television. If we're talking about pro wrestlers, once a week, twice if you're really good. If you are so good, three. Here's the scale. They have nothing to do with one another. I just think they're good good comparisons. Once a week, Ridge Holland. Put him in a match. Put him in a backstage interview. That's it. That's all he should be in for that week. He is not good enough. He is not exciting enough. He does not have enough to offer. Once a week. Twice a week, Harley Cameron. Now, I'm assuming you only have one show, so let's say twice a show. Harley Cameron. She's a decent wrestler. I don't think she's overly great, but she's a decent wrestler. But her promos are so good. Did you see the one she just did with Mercedes Moné? With the fucking puppet? She can sing, she can dance, she can act, she can cut promos, she can do ventriloquism.
and quiz them, yeah. It's like
Oh my
Jesus.
god.
I'm like, she just got Monet over more in that one.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh,
3 times a show, Sting. You can do a promo, you can do an interview, you can do a match. You can do a little backstage. Rock's another one. Like you could have like Like here, I'm pretty sure like when The Rock did the NWO meet and greet where he's like, ha ha, when talking about Kevin Nash. I just ripped
Yeah,
out my cat by doing that.
but back then, put him with three different female interviewers and him talking about the strudel. Hell,
Right?
with Sting, one of them segments you mentioned, you could just pan up.
Yeah. So like specifically with the NWO meet and greet, I'm pretty sure he also did an interview and a match that show. Like you could do that, and Stone Cold's one of those guys you could do that with. You could do 3 segments with him. Now you get into a point with like the Hulk Hogan and TNA where it was 10 out of 20 segments was Hogan. Brother, that don't work for me. So yeah, Stone Cold thrived post neck surgery because he knew who he was as a character, and he drew people in with that simple idea. But as a worker, he was washed. He was so far from what he was in '94 that you can say he's washed. It doesn't mean that he was incapable of having a good match on occasion. That's not what's being said. What's being said is that if you look at him in '94 or even in '96, and you look at him in 2001, he was washed. He was holding on by the skin of his teeth, in his own words. By the time he left it's 5 months into 2002, 5 months, he knew he was no longer having matches that he thought were good enough. And if you think that he was great in August of 2001 but was washed in May of 2002, you don't have a say at this table. You need to go to the children's section.
Yeah, you not being able to be constructually objective about your favorite, doesn't make you being constructively objective about your favorite doesn't make you less of a fan. Makes
Right.
you a better one because you can use logic. But like I said, I think Kurt Angle is one of the greatest to ever do it. But that classic clip of him doing that damn flip off the stage to the best, you fast forward to like we just said when he was spamming 3 moves out of his moveset for an entire match. Them ain't the same cats.
No, but here to your point though, that was an 8-year jump, right?
Yeah.
Stone Cold, we're talking, 13 months tops between when he was having the greatest matches of all time or the greatest match of his career to, you know, him being so bad in his own mind he had to retire. So like, the math ain't math in here.
Which again plays to your point just how significant some of these injuries are. Some people we never thought we'd ever see again coming off these next stuff. We've seen some people legitimately paralyzed from certain stuff. If I'm not getting his name wrong, like Drons, right?
Draws, yeah.
Draws,
Yeah, Draws suffered that horrific neck injury, unfortunately, when D'Lo Brown did the running power bomb and broke his neck. I mean, shit, look at Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy did this twist of fate on the Chris Bay. A move he's hit, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say 1,000,000 times. And 999,999 times, nothing happened. One errant mistake. So, yeah. It's unfortunate. But let's move on because we have some more unfortunate things to talk about, like AEW's Four Pillars. We were talking about this today at work. I work with an NWA. He's technically an NWA Exodus wrestler. And we were talking about the Four Pillars. I'm like, man, the Four Pillars are the worst fucking idea that AEW ever had because they tried to cement it as these are the apex of our futures. And 2 of them are just absolutely dog garbage. Well, a third is mediocre with a high-priced paycheck, and the fourth can't stay healthy because he thinks dying on a mountain is a good way to go. Of course, we're talking about MJF, Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin, the aforementioned 4 pillars of AEW. I am flabbergasted, Marcus. Flabbergasted. That even at this time, I think it was like 2021 they tried to pull this off. even in 2021, they picked these jabrones to be the pillars of their future. Now, like, Darby, I get. Darby is
Yeah.
charisma. He is, as the kids say, Riz. Darby's so cool, he made me a fan, and because my cat's a moron, like Darby Allen is lovingly, I named my cat after him. Because, like Darby Allen, my cat jumps off of dumb shit too. We have a meme in our house. Darby, no. Darby, yes. And Darby jumps. But aside from Darby, like, you have MJF, who, AEW World Title run. I wouldn't say it was a good one. I wouldn't say it was worthwhile or left me wanting more.
Would you dare say he's one of the most overhyped guys in the last decade?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. To me, he is... What's a good comparison? To me... Honestly, I think the best modern comparison is Jey Uso. A lot of people got behind MJF for some reason, but MJF has done nothing in his 6 years with AEW that have made me think to myself that he's evolving as a wrestler or as a personality. Here's the thing. I've been watching MJF since he was in MLW, when he was with Alexander Hammerstone and Richard Holiday. And he hasn't done anything since then that's different. He this is the issue that we have with AEW. Edge or Cope is doing the same thing that he's been doing for 15, 20 years. Sasha Banks been doing the same thing for 10 years. And now MJF's been doing the same thing for 8 years. And it's getting to a point where, like, hey, you need to change something up. You need to develop a new gimmick, a new look, a new style, a new something, because you're boring. You can keep being the bully and be like, I have money and you're poor. It's like, cool. All right. No, that's fine. It's fine. We don't give a shit, though. When JBL, Jibble, Mal, when JBL is more interesting as a character than you in 2025, you fucked up somewhere along the way.
And a cowboy hat trench coat spamming his finisher across the wrestling world.
That's all he's being paid for.
Wow.
Hey, JBL, we'll give you a couple grand if you show up and clothesline someone. Okay. So, like, yeah, overhyped. Then we go to Jack Perry. At the time, potential, right? Like, he great looking babyface, son of a Hollywood actor.
Oh, Jungle Jack.
But then he ruined his reputation and his legacy by steering into the I hate CM Punk bandwagon, because it's made him so contentious that he has X-Pac heat. Legitimate go away. Who cares about Jack Perry? So now he's a heel and he's got a scruffy beard that doesn't look good. It's patchy and prepubescent. He's got a terrible... I made the TNT title I had. It looks like you just put soot on it. Like, do you not know how to make good championship belts? Because that looked ugly as shit. And like, your whole claim to fame now is that you're, the remnants of CM Punk. You are a bad video game finish. So, like...
He literally got his head, the pun intended, bucked up.
Right.
And it kind of effed him long term, even though he went on excursion and most people benefited from going to New Japan. But I think he benefited if he would have stayed there. Because it's not like you came back and got AEW's Resident Mood title. That's what the TNT title is at this point.
Is he even still TNT champion? He isn't, is he?
No, it's freaking the air hump guy.
Yeah, it's Daniel Garcia.
Yeah.
So, like, Jack Perry, they try to make him into this thing, and really all we know is that he got bitched out by CM Punk. Got made to look like a little child, and that's all he'll ever be. And I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to, show that. Then you have Sammy Guevara, who should never be allowed around Mercedes Moné. Ever. Whose reputation is so bad, I don't know why he's on the roster. Like they put him with Dustin Rhodes because Dustin Rhodes has a sterling reputation at this point, and the hope is that if he can't get over with Dustin, then he'll never get over because he's not over. No one likes Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara is not a exceptional wrestler. We've watched him for I think what 9 years now. He was in TNA for a hot moment. I think it was Guevara
9 years.
versus Desmond Xavier at the end of the last World X Cup, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, watched him that long. Ran a horrible foul with Sasha Banks. Almost killed Matt Hardy.
Really only
Um,
ever had the position he had because he was friends with Jericho.
Absolutely. That, and this is just the imaging thing. It don't really factor into what we're going at, but didn't necessarily look the best when he proposed to the ex on AEW TV and then would eventually go on to marry Ty to Nera Conti. Um, well, I also don't know if she has the best reputation in the back, but yeah, essentially before NXT became like an official third brand, because it feels like that's how they treat ROH. He got sent down to ROH.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and you're right. I think Tay Mello was cheating on her husband with Sammy Guevara, but that's hearsay. I don't know if that for a
Yeah,
fact. But still, you are who you associate with. And
yeah.
she associates herself with Sammy, and Sammy associates himself with her. So, like, not great people.
Hey, hey, you know how bad it is, and this because we always talk about like he's not the best guy either. Certainly, that Sammy Guevara was to the point where they had to get him away from Jericho.
Yeah, they were worried about Sammy Guevara affecting Chris Jericho.
Who needs no help.
But apparently, Sammy Guevara was so toxic that he could have. He could have made things worse. So, that, Sammy's not great. Then you have Darby, and I think of the four, Darby is the most realistic as far as a superstar goes. He's the smallest, so I think it's holding him back. I think he's like 5'7", right?
Yeah,
Um,
5'7". How many pounds soaking? What you think?
Maybe 120 pounds if he's holding a 14-pound bag of dirt,
Along with his skateboard.
right? So he's listed at 5'8", 175. If he's 5'8", 175, I'm 6'3", 340. And I'm not. I'm 188 and
If
I'm
he's
five
that
six.
if that's his accurate numbers, me and Chad are literally Toker and Razor.
Yeah, we are Road Warrior Hawk and Road Warrior Animal. Like we are juiced and
Oh
huge.
man.
We are bad Mamma Jammas. Now, Darby Allin, much like MJF, was in MLW, and I've been watching him for a lot of years too. He has evolved a bit. He's evolved his look a little bit. He's evolved his moveset a little bit. He isn't the most impressive athlete. I think he's a lot more in line with Jeff Hardy than he is anyone else. And I don't think Jeff Hardy's a great athlete. He's not fast. He doesn't have a long vert. He's not super strong. You look at Will Ospreay. You look at um, Ricochet, and then you look at Jeff Hardy. And you're like, oh no, that's cute. You can jump off things, but you're not an athlete. You're just crazy. I think Darby Allin fits that mold too, and I like Darby. I like him quite a bit, but he's not like a super athlete. So his downfall, and I don't say his downfall, his decline as an athlete, as a wrestler, isn't going to be nearly as drastic as Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is going to, unless he changes his offense completely over the next 5 years, is going to hit a wall, the likes of
Mm,
which Kurt Angle couldn't even comprehend.
mm.
And you're not going to see that issue with Darby. Of the four of them, I don't think any of them are great promos. Like MJF says the same thing every week. Clearly not
Every
a great
week.
promo. Sammy, when he talks, he offends entire genders. When Jack Perry talks, he ruins the company. And when Darby talks, he doesn't really say anything that I think captivates a nation. Like when Sting talks, like, gee, he brought you in. He made you feel like you were watching, the most spectacular
Yeah,
speech in history. When Darby
yeah,
talks, it's like, oh God, you're gonna try to kill yourself again, aren't you?
yeah. You know, of the four, MJF won't shut up.
Yeah.
Um, Guevara and Perry should always shut up. But I think Darby more so than anyone just does enough to get his point across. And then you go like, oh, now he's gonna do something stupid because that's really all he's trying. He's really not. He really doesn't want to talk. He just wants to get to the stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Apparently, he was on a show called "Sex Sent Me to the ER."
Oh dear God, them people be having whole tubes of stuff in their ass and just but I'm not shocked. Did we talk about him putting like some type of hot sauce on his nuts or something on his butthole?
I think, yeah, either on his ass or his hole
Jeez.
or on his taint.
Was this while he was dating Gigi Dolan or something to that
Yeah.
effect?
So okay,
Jesus.
so he's saying it was a fake story. He says there was this show, Sex Sent Me to the ER, and I wrote in this fake ass story about hiking in the woods with a grandma, and then we were making love and we rolled over on a bee's nest. And we thought it was like dead, and the nest was there with no. The nest was like there. There were no bees in there, and then the bees came out and attacked us. Even more incredible is that the TLC called the wrestler back. He needed to find someone quick to play the woman that he had been having a relationship with. One quick trip to Craigslist, and he had an actress willing to commit to his crazy story. If you're interested in the episode, it's called Cougars and Bees, and it still
Jesus.
exists on the TLC's YouTube page. We're gonna look that
Oh
up
my
right
God.
now.
That is we have to.
I think that's next week's story.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like one thing specifically though, if something significantly happens to him injury wise, it's not even gonna be in the ring.
No, it's
It probably
probably
won't even be in the
not.
ring. That's the craziest thing. Like all them years we was watching Jeff Hardy, I think the most significant injury he ever had was when he was what doing the cross bike, dirt bikes, and broke his leg.
Yeah, I think he was jumping over like a huge
He was
gap.
yeah, he was. I think they was doing dunes on their ranch.
Oh my God, Marcus, I'm gonna send this to you, but like this fucking image. Ah, fantastic, man. Ah, I love it.
Sex sent me to the ER.
Uh, just it's fantastic. His fucking hair is so atrocious. Oh my God.
Please don't tell me you got the frosted tips.
No, it's worse. It's so much
Jeez.
worse. It's so much worse. Uh, all right. So yeah, the four pillars have objectively failed, and it's failed because they were brought about inorganically. That's the biggest issue with the four pillars. They were an inorganic idea. So the concept was based off of, I think it was All Japan. They had four wrestlers who they believed were the foundations of their future because of how talented they are, not because management forced them into that spot. They didn't just be like, these are the four guys we're going to make the four pillars. These are the four dudes who earned the right to be the four pillars. Let's see. Let me pull that up real quick. Four pillars. So the four pillars of heaven were Mitsuhara Musawa, Toshika Kawada, Akira Tao, and Kenta Kobashi. Um, yeah, I'm not. I won't sit here and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly who Akira Tao is. I know of him. I've seen some of his stuff, but I'm far more. Misawa and Kobashi would go on to form Noah together, and Kawada is just fucking fantastic. I think Kawada is the one that's currently in a wheelchair, though. Sadly, and maybe it's not Kawada. Maybe it's not Kawada. But like those four dudes were great when they got the designation. And I think when you look at the four men that AEW picked, like there was potential there, but it was a marketing gimmick, not a declaration of talent. And when that's the case, you're only going to be so successful. Um,
Yeah. And I guess coming off that, this would be a great question to pose to you because I think you be booking these things when they happen anyway in your head. This might be a tough one, so take your time with it. When AEW named those guys their four pillars, to your credit, you called it rubbish back then.
Hmm.
For you, who would you have named as the four pillars back then, and who do you think have become their four pillars today?
Okay, so let's say for the sake of argument, this is 2021. Kenny, Cody, maybe Moxley. I'm trying to think of who all joined and when they joined. I would say Kenny and Cody and Moxley. And then probably Darby.
Okay.
And now I would say I'm not going to factor in anyone that I don't know is coming back, and I'm not going to factor anyone who has since left, and I'm not going to factor anyone that I think is near the end of their career. So first and foremost, Will Ospreay,
Mm-hmm.
Swerve,
Mm-hmm.
Omega,
Mm-hmm.
and probably still Darby. Like it'd be easy to name, someone like Jericho just because of what he's done in the company, not necessarily because he's still that good.
Yeah.
But like his run early in the company did help. It did.
Mm-hmm.
It did help. He is washed now. I don't think he's.
Absolutely.
I don't think he's so washed he can't be on TV. But
Yeah.
he should be in a tag team permanently now. Like he should just
Yeah.
be in a tag team, helping get young guys over and competing in tag team matches. But I think right now the four pillars would be Swerve, Osprey, Omega, and who did I say? Darby.
Yeah. For I would throw an honorable mention in there being Cassidy.
I think Orange Cassidy deserves to be mentioned. If they can get him in a world title scene where he wins the belt, I think you could easily make the case that he deserves to be in there for sure. Um, same with Darby. I'm not sold on Darby being one of the four pillars because I think being part of the four pillars means that you're actually a pillar of the company, and I think you
Yeah.
have to be like a world champion, constant contender, main event guy in and out to be a pillar. And I just don't know if that's Darby yet. I think he could be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they haven't
It,
put him
and
in
sometimes
that spot.
I think I might switch him out with Orange just for sustainability. Like I think Orange is needed some time off for a very long time. Um, but it's sometimes when I'm watching Darby, it's like watching Shibata do anything related in a match with his head,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh my god, or watching Brian get taking a German or anything dealing with his neck, like I'm just cringing the whole time. Like I have no long term vision in terms of like this guy lasting extremely long time just because of his style. Like he's getting thrown like a literal rag doll. I think he needs to switch his finisher because we just got through talking about bad backs,
Mm-hmm.
and that can't be good long term going forward. A damn coffin drop,
No.
and literally, like he was literally planning to climb Mount Everest and got hit by a literal bus.
Yeah.
You can't write this stuff.
No, you really can't. You really can't. All right. Um, I think next week what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at Hulu is bringing back Buffy. What? Why?
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. I don't get that. I do not get that. And watching it and going back and watching like the Inside of You podcast of Michael Rosenbaum, shout out to Lex, and hearing the actor that played Spike talk about how he kind of got traumatized with those scenes where he had to assault her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, yeah, certain things just happen when they happen, and we kind of need to keep them there. Like that upcoming season, which apparently is going to be the last season of the Sandman, with everything looming around gaming.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's.
Well, I think next week, speaking of downfalls of gaming, we're gonna look at the downfalls of the NWA. We're going to talk about the 10 reasons we think the NWA has fallen from their early heights in 2019 to now.
Mm.
So start brainstorming. Top 10 reasons the NWA felt. Now, if there's some major breaking news, we may bump it. But I really do want to look at more obscure things in wrestling, and I feel like the NWA is pretty damn obscure because it sucks, but still obscure. So we're going to talk about that next week. Mark, is there any final thoughts on this week's show?
No, that's pretty much it, man. Check out what you check out. Continue to watch TNA, uh, Glee. Check out all that good stuff. I mean, obviously it falls all into the watch more wrestling thing, but yeah, we always talk about that. It's too much good stuff. So if you get tired of us talking about stuff we don't like, which is legitimately being critical, like you said, there's a plethora of stuff out there. Just go find.
Yep. All right, so with that being said, let's wrap it up. Mark, you can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TruePennyShow, over on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. They post their shows on Twitter, so go check them out. They talk about GLEAT a lot and other things as well. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on the Instagram at ChadSphoto, ChadSphohut. Be sure to check me out there. We'll be back next week again to cover the downfall of the NWA, so tune in for that. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.